Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. I have the same desk, but in a different order, and I'm not sure why everyone's shuffled around, but here we are, and we're going to be going on to bracket number 4. Gentlemen, I can't remember what the next match is coming up. Does anyone know when the next match is?
I don't know. Wasn't it Stats against Impact? Was it Stats Impact or the
Stats Impact, current match.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
You're welcome.
Well played. I looked to the lower third.
Good memory.
And asked you.
I have my moments.
You do. Few and far between.
And
but
you have my shield.
Wow.
It's all right.
Wow.
Gentlemen, what do we think? Stats versus Impact. I'll move off that as fast as possible. Jeff, going to start with you.
I mean, Stats, again, still considered probably the best Protoss on the planet. If not the best, then certainly one of the nicest. You just can't help but to root for that guy. Impact is got to be the hipster pick for the tournament. Like, if you've been following that Korean scene, he's just very, very good. I think unnamed sources would tell you that kind of the disappointing thing about Impact is he seems to really thrash it up in kind of the earlier rounds of a tournament. And then once it gets down to that crunch time and you're facing, you know, really important matches that kind of determine your entire year, basically, he seems to have a little bit of nerves. So we'll see if he can kind of overcome that.
We had this once already today where they're sat right next to each other, and I really like when
it's a good shot.
Right
it's a good
next
shot
to each other. Just like that.
For people that are worried, there's big dividers.
Yeah,
in case you didn't see that, there's no way they can see each other.
To preface this series a little bit, I watched Stats actually play against Xanster, and especially game number 2, Stats was trying to style on Xanster a little bit with some double prism, 4 arc, you know, hit from the north, hit from the south kind of strats.
I like that.
But Xanster played really, really well. He actually had a massive lead. Stats managed to just push through with a great timing attack, but he looked a little shaky still. So maybe his PVZ not as convincing and confident as it was like back in the day when he was in the grand final against Cyril. You know?
Okay. Wow. Pig, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Impact is a player who can bring out... He's always dangerous, right? He's always very aggressive, and I think Stats is the clear favorite here. But for Impact, it's weird because I feel like he does so well in these open qualification stages, and in the past years, we've then seen him struggle in the group stage. I think he's got the chance to take Stats down, but it's going to be difficult for Impact to close it out.
Definitely agree. Stats still the favorite.
Yeah. Thank you, Maynard. I just got that for a moment there. Nice, nice. And I think that Stats as well kind of wants to go through even on this position because...
He'd like to go through, yeah.
Because he didn't go through last year.
I think it's enough. That is why you are such a dang good host. Like, I think you're right. Stats losing last year probably means that he wants to win this StarCraft II match this year.
Yes, thank
James?
you. Yes.
It's almost like winning is better than losing.
Do you
in a
reckon,
tournament.
win or lose, if he came back to Katowice in 2020, he'd want to win that one as well?
I mean, yeah, probably.
Yeah?
I think so. Like, there's a lot of money. I mean, he's a pro gamer, and playing games professionally is kind of his job.
I would need a telestrator to really break this down, but I think that's... I agree with you, Jim.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
The analysis has reached a new level, guys.
I mean,
It's later in the day, so now we're all like...
Oh, yeah.
Sharks in the water, like, did you say something silly? I'm running a 5-minute little way to
This is actually every desk now for some reason. Anyway, it's time to go over to our commentary team here to bring you all the action from this qualifying match.
Thank you very much, guys. Fantastic breakdown here. Winning is better than losing.
I think they said the most complex stuff that I've never heard of before in my life. But that is, I do love Jeffrey. I love Maynard. I love Pig. I love everybody here, man.
And you know who just lost recently? Stats in GSL. Lost to MC, lost to Cure, and finished dead last of his group in the round of 32. So if there's anything left for him to play, it is here at the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice to try and make it to the next round.
This is quite often a redemption tournament for a lot of those GSL players that got knocked out early. So, I mean, you don't have to focus on that anymore. You don't have any nerves left for the GSL. It's not as if you have to get back, do anything over there. So Stats, hopefully, he's just focusing on this tournament because this didn't go too well for him last year either. Impact, on the other hand, I do believe he made top 16 in GSL in his group. So he's looking pretty fresh, honestly. But if we talk about the players, this is almost like, you know, cool, calm, defensive, very calculated player against the absolute opposite in Impact. Impact is crazy. He's in your face. All-ins here, roaches, ravagers, you name it. Stats is looking quite sedated on the web or on the camera, by the way. Just a little lax, very relaxed, smiling as always. He looks very comfortable, and that's a good sign going into the game.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like some of your practice for a tournament such as GSL, you know, which is like a league, you get a long time to practice for specific matchups, takes some time to kick in. You know, you lose in that tournament, but all the practice that you have acquired for those specific matches, it still comes in handy for the tournaments happening right after, just because you've worked so hard for it. So we could definitely be seeing something like this here, I think, out of Stats, where it's still going to help him a lot to have trained hard in those last days.
Right, practice kicks in like a month later. I remember all the foreigners that went to Korea, they'd be talking about, oh, I practiced so hard. Then 6 months after, that's when they get really good. Anyhow, going into this first match of the series, spawning as our blue Zerg in the southeast side of Port Alexander, it is Impact. Sickest glasses.
Harry Potter glasses. And in the top left, playing in the red, it is Splice's Stats. Hashtag on the hunt.
On the hunt, mate, on the hunt. Hasn't been a good start to the year for Stats. He is a guy that has been in finals of some major tournaments recently. GSL versus the World. He actually managed to push Serral pretty darn hard. He was the finalist of BlizzCon. You can absolutely say he might be the greatest Protoss right now, but a little stumble in GSL isn't looking that good for him. But going into this tournament, this is fresh. He's looking good so far, and he is in the winner bracket. So if you do see either one of these players lose, this isn't the last you're going to see of them in this bracket by any means.
Yeah, I think it's nice that there's at least a lower bracket. You know, obviously it wouldn't be ideal if you just travel all the way from South Korea, you lose one best of 3 and then that's it. So at least there would be that. But yeah, so far, pretty clean. He's faced 2 Zergs, so he got some good warm-up, did stats here. 2-0 against Mamba and 2-0 against Zenster as well.
By the way, neither of these players have dropped a map here thus far. Impact took out Soul in his first round match, pretty tough. Took out a Laser too, so looking like a bit of a Polish killer, but that doesn't really matter when it comes to this match against his fellow Korean.
Yeah, and we see the fairly standard openers here so far. Stats with the scout here, seeing what's up. That timing on the spawning pool, how much gas is being mined. The third hatchery is now going to start for Impact. Impact, I feel like he gets a little bit of a reputation of being, you know, a very aggressive Zerg player, and he is, but he definitely is one of those guys also that if he wants to go into, you know, 70 drones plus and then play like the late game, he also can do that very well, in my opinion. It's just that he prefers being on the more aggressive side of things, so you won't usually see him do that. Even if he drones up a whole bunch, you know, he'll stop at like 60, 64-ish, then make a lot of units and try to make some attacks happen. But yeah, we're in a PvZ here. Niduses are very popular. All alike. Protosses are starting to figure out better and better how to counter those, so we'll see if maybe one of those is involved here.
And I can't think of too many Protosses that are more well-rounded than Stats in order to deal with those kind of things. We have a very early Twilight Council for Stats, so no Stargate on the map, which is usually a pretty ordinary opener. So I'd like to see what Stats goes with this. We have a very early third for Impact. That's to get creep spread up. That probe now leaves the base. He was trying to deny mining a little bit. This Adept is just to get more vision. If you can get a drone kill or two, that's great, but don't think it too likely. This is mainly for information.
Yeah, how much more gas was mined can be important. I mean, he sees that the speed's on the way. He kind of already pretty much knew that. Sees that there is no second gas or anything like that.
And here we have a nice wall off for Stats, using the Stalker just to deny vision. This Overlord in a decent position to check out the gases of his opponent. And you may look at the production tab and be like, what, a Dark Shrine? But this is obviously for the very, very tried and true Archon drop. You run in with 4 DTs early on. By the way, this Overlord path will get to see everything. So very nice scouting by Impact. Whether it'll be on time or not, we'll see, but a very prominent opener for Protoss.
Yeah, you should be ready for it regardless. Like, we already see a Spore in the production tab here. And
it's such a common opening, right? Like, you're either against Oracles or Archon drop, or quite a lot of the time, both.
Yeah. By the way, you're doing a really good job this tournament of, you know...
Not whining?
Yeah, not being biased at all.
What can I say, man? We've had Terra make it through now, you know?
Yeah, well... I just wanted to say good job, you know. If you ever feel like sharing your real thoughts, though, don't hesitate.
On the stream, Todd, on the stream.
Yeah.
The private stream, I mean, you know. I can't be doing that stuff here. I get sacked, mate.
Don't worry, we're going to keep on...
drilling me a little bit?
Yeah, especially later on when the really good Terrans come into play.
The thing is, when it does get to the next round and you have like every Terran making it through, then I can't say anything, can I?
Yeah.
So he does actually get to see this Warp Prison with both the Ling and the Overlord. This is a nice little bit of hunting here. It does delay his Archon push and the Dark Templars and such, but Stats is a way better Protoss than I'll ever be, so he thinks it's worth it.
Bad supply block here, actually, for Impact. He starts 3 Overlords. We've got more Dark Templars warping in, and a Forge on the way here for Stats. He's not going to ignore these upgrades. He's not going to commit to any kind of big attack. This is kind of what we come to expect from him. Probably going to go into a 3rd base here momentarily.
Wow, this is very defensive, right? Where he's warped in these units. And I guess this is because he forced himself to keep his Warp Prism at home.
Yeah.
And we do see that Impact's actually responded very, very fairly here. There are a lot of Lings ready to deny a possible 3rd. He's got lots of Roaches on the way. Honestly, when I look at this, I'm like, man, Impact's in pretty good shape for all of this. Also, his economy. In fact, he's not stopping on the Roach button here.
Yeah.
Tom.
He's in good shape to defend, but then if Stats was to build up his economy more and then take that 3rd base, he'd be the one in a good spot. So 2 Dark Templars in the main base, Archons in the 3rd base here, trying to do some damage, and he's not ready in the main base. The Spore was out of position here on the left side, and there is no units there. Stats with a fantastic timing here.
And by the way, I totally failed to mention, there is 2 Warp Prisms on the map. So the delayed Warp Prism that he used to scout and kill that Overlord, it was kind of totally planned because these 2 Warp Prisms came in sync to attack in 2 different spots. And
He
already
bamboozled him.
Absolutely, and delayed attacks like that can really do it. And now we're going for a double-double, the double Archon drop with the double... Oh, this is quite crazy by Stats. Maynard did talk about this, that he already showcased this against Zanster earlier on in the bracket.
Double, what is this? In and outs? This is StarCraft, man. He's got Archons all over the place, ready to kill more and more drones. Already killed a whole bunch. 45 probes to 51 drones, and he's looking to try and do some more damage. 4 more gateways on the way, so still no 3rd Nexus. He's just going to get a ton of units and potentially attack, even if he was to start that 3rd Nexus later on.
Absolutely. These Archons are dealing a lot of damage, and one of the nice things about the Archons in the Warp Prism, they are nearly 90%, or rather 99% shield, so they do regen in the Warp Prism. So this attack, it's going to be relentless. And Stats, he's getting a lot of damage done with this. Even if you consider the drone count kills here, this is denied mining left, right, and center back at home, as you pointed out. By the way, +2 before a Nexus.
All right, that's insane. How many drones has he killed so far? Like, I feel like maybe 20 or something.
It's going to be a high number. We have sentries joining the field too. Getting these sentries early means he's going to build up energy. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a total role reversal. This is Stats going hardcore aggressive. By the way, I do like the fact that Impact across the map has got scouts on both possible 3rds.
Yeah.
By the way, these early Lings, they were useless because a 3rd never came into the fray. Oh!
As if Stats knew. There we go. The 4 Archons onto the natural. He hasn't lost a unit yet, I think.
No, he hasn't, and a recall back home.
He's killed so much.
The perfect game. In other games, you'd call this a flawless victory thus far. Now, the army starts moving out on the map. Charge is almost completed. +2, halfway. And by the way, continuing pro production now. Is this just a very delayed 3rd or a fake 3rd? Either way, he can potentially push while taking a 3rd. These Lings all heading back home. Impact, a Nidus on the field.
Yeah, I don't think he realized that he should not be too worried about attacking here, but rather on the defense. But I guess maybe if he can't time that well and there is none of the army of Stats back at home, but then he still would have recall, I guess. But even if he forced that, that could be good for Impact. I mean, he invested so much into units that he has to think of some way to make stuff happen himself here eventually.
This army of Impact, definitely decent, but man, this army of Stats packs a punch, and that +2, when that gets online, these charge lots, these Immortals, these Archons are going to deal so much damage. Where is the other Warp Prism, by the way? This has to be somewhere on the map. He's going to, yes, this is not just a jab, but this is a jab, jab, punch to the main base as well.
And Impact is going to need some good head movements.
Oh!
Deal with this one.
Really good force fields.
Yeah, he's going to clear those out with the corrosive bile here, but the units were trapped for long enough that they're going to die very quick. Those 4 Immortals going to work. Archons still very healthy. The charge lots helping a lot too. And the Zealots in the main base finally were defended, but too much damage dealt by Stats.
Man, Stats, he just came along with his... Ah, look at that little... I love that look at the camera. But man, he just came along with his lawnmower. Impact was the grass, and he just... I wish I looked at that resources lost tab at the end of that game, because he barely lost a thing there. That was absolutely flawless play. Also, something that I didn't really expect from Stats, him being the shameless aggressor there, putting up his 3rd behind that, but it almost seemed like a fake. By the way, the +2 finishing for those charge lots in the main, they were just 2-shotting every drone in sight. Never, like, he did, even without that Warp Prism in the main, that army at the 3rd base as well, what a sick army at that stage in the game.
That was insane. If you're a Protoss player and you struggle with Zerg, watch and rewatch that VOD, wait for those replays to be out and study that game, because that was exemplary on how you need to play in the matchup. That was so beautiful here, play by Stats. And I mean, if you're Impact and you play this first kind of map in a best of 3 series, like you have to be thinking like, where do I even go from there? Like, this is really tough.
I thought I was against this defensive Protoss that always sits back and defends, you know, like the greats, like Rain before him. Now, I see a Warp Prism, then there's 2 Warp Prisms. Like, that is Protoss evolution right there. And he's witnessing one of the best Protosses in the world doing it to him too. You know, I don't always commend Stats on his micro, by the way, but he kept those Warp Prisms alive. He did like, what, 1,700, 1,800 resources lost of damage to Impact, slowed down his economy thoroughly.
The recall was sick, by the way, because that was just at the time where there was going to be enough Roaches and Queens that these Archons were not going to do anything anymore. So he doesn't even overextend. He's like, you know what? I've done the damage I wanted to. I'm just going to regroup, send those back home, and then do the timing later on. Just insane play out of the Protoss player here.
It's almost like he's a BlizzCon finalist, you know, like a really good player. Like, the things that he was pulling off that game, very, very strong. One thing that we have to mention as well, Impact, he went for so many Lings early on to deny a third. He was totally thinking about, okay, I play a player that's very standard. He'll take a third at this time. This will go my way. Stats, he flipped his strategy entirely. And I love it when players are able to mix it up like that, because Impact did what Impact does, make quite a lot of units. He didn't buy, well, he was making a Nidus at the end of the game, but Stats, yeah, you got to commend a guy like that.
Yeah, sometimes it's not good, obviously, to be predictable, right? Like if you're masterful at what you do, I guess it can be okay. But in this case, Stats just was the aggressor, and it just worked out so well for him. And that double prism, I mean, even we didn't notice. And I think that's really what changed everything. Because if it had only been the Archons on the third base, then Impact was completely ready for that. It's just the units in the main base, the Dark Templar are starting to kill drones, forcing drones from being pulled away, and that creates a snowball effect, and then you start on falling more and more behind.
And I love this about meta in StarCraft, by the way. It's like a strategy. For example, like Archon drop, it's like, it's not as good anymore, so they start switching up, going for like the Oracle Phoenix opening and such. But then the meta shifts again. It's like, well, Archon drop's pretty good. When you do 2 of them in 2 different locations, then when you had them all together at the natural 2, that was awesome play. Anyhow, getting into our second game of the series on Kairos Junction, spawning as the Blue Zerg in the northwest, it is Impact.
And his opponent in the reds, he had a masterful game number 1. He wants to close things out and qualify for the round of 24. It is Stats.
This is a very different Stats to what I saw in GSL, by the way, and it is beautiful to see a player bounce back so quickly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like whoever loses here, they're gonna have a serious shot anyway at making the round of 24 in that lower bracket, but they would have to win 2 more matches, which is so important against some potential very strong players. So it's obviously much better to make it there.
When you talk about favorites in this bracket, this is bracket 4 now of day 2. Stats, obviously a favorite. We were kind of worried about him, whether he'd be looking as strong as he usually does, but he absolutely is so far. Impact also a massive contender in this bracket. Over in the lower bracket, we have good players like Solar, Lambo, DNS, Trust, Denver. This is very, very stacked.
Yeah, and I mean, whoever loses here also would have to beat whoever loses in the other qualifying match, which is going to be between Solar and Trust. All these 4 players, actually, Stats, Impact, Solar, and Trust, up to the point they have to play in the qualifying match, none of them have lost a map. So looking very dominant in that group over everybody else.
Yeah, I honestly didn't see it being so one-sided. I thought Lambo could do a really good job against Trust, but Trust whipped out some crazy stuff against him. Did you see that hidden pylon in his base and stuff? And apparently the second game was like a charge lot of Mortal all-in, so Lambo took a swift 2-0 defeat there. By the way, I do love when you see a really good Protoss player utilizing the probe in every way they can, like trying to mine minerals, just because only one unit can mine from a mineral at a time. So if you keep picking at it at just the right time, the drones get kind of messed up. And even though you might deny them of 20 minerals overall, it's still something.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, it can be pretty annoying and frustrating as well when you're facing that. Like if you get the wrong end of it, you know, in so many ladder games, you get used to it and you do well. But then in the one, you know, big tournament where it matters most, here in Katowice, if it starts going wrong, you can already kind of frustrate your opponent, which...
So far, very similar openings by both players. Impact opting for a very quick third, and yet again, in fact, does he have speed on the way? Doesn't? Oh, now it starts. I was going to be like, oh, we're going to see some fast lair from him, because that is very possible. But Stats, he's such a good, thorough player. Given that the game didn't go wrong for him before, why would he change it up? So Impact probably noticed or knows that there's going to be a depth very, very shortly that's going to get all the information he needs. So he can't pull out anything too crazy like that against him. But yeah, Twilight Council already done, or very soon to be done. Robo on the way. Stats sticking with what works so far.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good build order to go for, just because also you don't have to commit everything to aggression, right? You're just going to see what the opponent has. If they've overmade units, then that means they don't have enough drones, right, in terms of economy. So then you just don't attack. You just pull back and you're ahead on the economy side of things.
You know, often when you look at pro players and their builds, especially the guys at the very, very top like Stats, maybe there are different, or there absolutely has to be different follow-ups to the builds that he's doing. So I'm wondering what kind of, he must have a plethora of builds and channels and tree avenues in which this build can go down. But right now, going up to 4 gateways, Dark Shrine on the way. Does he still have a Stalker in his natural? Because he used that before to deny vision. Yes, so absolutely sticking with what he did in the first game.
Yeah, which is really nice, because he gets the Prism, which gives vision onto that Overlord there, and then he just hunts that with the one Stalker and kills it. Unless he wants to go quicker across the map, but I feel like that's not necessary. Killing this one Overlord can be really nice. Last game, that was kind of what started things. That was like the initial first blood where he supply blocked impacts, and then from there, killed drones in the main base. And again, that snowball effect was created, and yeah, he's going to do the exact same thing here once again.
And the second Warp Prism already in production too, so that's really smart, it's really nice, it worked for him in the game 1. There is one massive difference this game, and that's from Impact. There isn't that squad of Lings ready on the third base, or possible third bases of Stats, so learning from his mistakes, or just potential, you know, unfortunate decisions from the first game. So I love that he's also changing it up a little bit. He will have Roaches out in the field. He's getting speed for both Lings and Roaches. By the way, the Ling speed much later this game, meaning that he got to use that money, that economy, to push into more drones as well earlier. So his economy is definitely looking better this game, but he does see the Archons are going across the map.
Yeah, I wonder if Stats will do the same thing where he delays the third base, or if he takes it quicker now this time around that there is no links. I see a unit on the third base. Maybe that's a probe already kind of ready to drop that down. Yes, it is. No, that's an adept. Okay.
Either way, there are a lot of Roaches, and it does seem like Impact's in pretty good position to hold off this first Warp Prism. The Warp Prism is, or the other Warp Prism is just outside the main base though. There are DTs warping in, but look at this. This is actually beautiful planning by Impact. 5 Roaches already ready. Also in the Overseer, a very important feature, as he doesn't have a spawn in the main mineral line.
And this is what I was talking about. If you pay close attention to your units, sure, like, you're investing a lot into being aggressive, but you don't have to overextend. Like, Stats went for the same build as last game. This time Impact was ready. Does that mean that Stats is behind? No. He forced a lot of Roaches, he forced Overseers, and he's just gonna build up his economy a little bit more. So obviously, I mean, it's good for Impact that he didn't take damage from this, and he can build his own economy as well. But Stats, I don't feel, has fallen behind from, you know, going for this attack and not necessarily doing damage just yet.
By the way, is that no Spore gonna not pay dividends here? Oh, crazy Spire play on the bottom of the map. But Stats doesn't give a damn. He is running in there with his Archons, and now the damage is gonna start piling up. He's also denying creep, which is really big deal. Denying your opponent a vision, denying his ability to just rush across the map at light speed against you. The Spire play could really catch Stats off guard. By the way, drone count, up to 58 already. He's done really good droning out a lot of units, despite being under pretty harsh pressure, honestly. But he's deflected it all perfectly.
Yeah, there is no way that Stats will spot that Spire at the bottom side of the map. So here's what Impact is shooting for. He wants to make a bunch of Mutas, and as they come out, he wants to catch one of the Prism, in which case there wouldn't be time for it to recall out of there. And if you snipe one of the Prism, then you can kill the Archons as well if you're on point with the Roaches being there. Sniping a Prism plus 2 Archons would be the dream scenario here, I think, for him.
We have to talk about the location of that Spire too. Like, that's actually a beautiful spot to put it, because these Archons, they do get a lot of vision while they're harassing your bases. So making him absolutely not aware that Mutas are going to be joining the field anytime soon, that's very smart by Impact.
All right, let's see.
By the way, there are a few things that have also changed about Stats. This third is much earlier. There weren't the Lings on the field to deny that. We will see how much damage these Archons can get going. They get some juicy shots off against these Roaches.
Where are the Mutas?
They're not here yet, Todd, but one Warp Prism is getting a little bit lower. The thing is, it's quite hard to chase these Warp Prisms.
Oh, he's going around with the Mutas at the bottom side of the map, so he's gonna fly into the main base. Instead of trying to catch the Prisms, he's like, I have enough roaches back at home to deal with these, so I'm just gonna fly into your mineral line. You're not gonna be ready, I'm gonna start on killing probes. And usually when that happens, here's how it goes. A base trade begins. Because there is Warp Prisms across the map, Stats can warp in Stalkers and just go for the kill, knowing that there might not be enough on the ground for Impact to hold on. What does he do? Does he recall? I think he's gonna go for the base trade.
I think so too. These 4 Archons are regenerating in shield. But these Mutas are going absolutely ham. Where are the Warpins? Are they all aggressive Warpins right now?
He's just gonna try to kill him. He's hesitant a little bit, pulling back for a second. He has to go for it now before there is more Ravagers, before there is Spine Crawlers. Nice concave, already pre-set up here from Impact. He's got so many roaches. Force Field start on landing here to try and split some of those away. There is a lot left over from Impact. Looks like he might be cleaning up even without the Mutas.
What a difference in games. 32 probes down and that counter is still climbing. The Archons are dying, there's Immortals at the back, but this is a lot of Impact. He knew this fight was coming. Stats down to 3 probes while this is all going off. It looks like Impact is easily going to take this game. And what a turnaround by the young Korean in Impact. This was such a good hold by him. A good read of the game. The Mutas come in to finish off the job too. And boom. Wow. What a difference. The exact same strategy from Stats, but man, Impact played a little bit different. He changed up some parts of his build. No longer did he go for the early links to deny the third. Those sneaky Mutas, he got to drone up a little bit more too. There was no Nidus in production. He really caught Stats with his pants down that game.
Talk about staying focused, by the way. After game number 1, I was questioning, the potential ability from Impact here to stay focused, stay in it, not let it get to his head, the fact that Stats played such an incredible game and he was so convincing, and he was like, you know what? It's my turn now. He turned it on, and very convincing win here for him, and he gets the equalizer.
If Impact really showed me anything that game, it's his ability to be like, oh, you played that strategy? Oh, you're doing the same thing again? I know exactly how to play against it after I've just lost to it. Because StarCraft, it's a game of incomplete information. And he looked at it, he looked at Stats, he thought he had the right answer in the first game, but we don't always make the right choice. And he honestly didn't with those Lings early on, but he changed it up and he made all the right moves. And now we're tied in this series.
And it almost lends perfectly to his style as well, because Impact is the guy that loves to make a lot of roaches, not necessarily go too high in drones. He loves to make those Mutalisks as well and be active with them, and he's very good. The decision of not going for the War Prism, I think, was great, because he completely caught him off guard. And once, if you find out about Mutas being made as they reach your mineral line and you don't have cannons and shell batteries inside of those, and you're not whopping Stalkers or Phoenixes back at home, you're already in a lot of trouble. Usually you already have lost the game, which was really the case here. Stats tried to salvage that with a big attack, but Impact had enough on the ground. He didn't overdrone, and very clean win here.
Upon sending the Mutas to his opponent's base, he was also making Spine Crawlers back at home too, so he knew what it was going to be forcing. He knew the next stage of the game. You talk about chess players knowing moves in advance, StarCraft players definitely do too. And spawning on the 3rd map of this series, over in the bottom right of Cyber Forest, it is Impact.
His opponent in the reds still has everything to fight for here. Playing Protoss, it is Stats.
A much different map here, Todd. Cyber Forest, it's got a really short rush distance between the bases. The main base is rather cramped, making it a bit more difficult for Protoss players to set up their structures. We've seen a lot of times that Niduses can be placed in the main base. We've seen pylons, quite a lot of Artosis pylons in the main base, actually, just because it is quite difficult to lay out your structures properly. Game starting off fairly normal, though. We have an early probe scout, nothing dicey, nothing crazy from either of these. So they're both very confident in their fundamentals, their mechanics, and their strategies.
Yeah, you have a ramp, I guess, at least at the natural, which is medium-sized for Protoss in particular, or more, I guess maybe a bit more on the narrower sides.
This is one of the maps, too, where you kind of have a choice of thirds, right? You can take the more triangular base, which I guess would be more difficult. If you're a Zerg player, you can opt for the more forward base or the more defensive base. That can also dictate to your opponent what kind of strategy you might be opting for in the mid-game. A Nexus early on, no early Ling shenanigans from Impact so far in this series, so Stats just doing everything very standard and kind of getting away with it. The early third again for Impact, by the way, very early third.
I think if Stats open, in terms of steps to take to get the advantage. You know, Impact did really well last game. He was ready for the main base and the third base. So what if Stats pretended he was doing the same thing, but then only did the one War Prism and let Impact get ready for the attack on? Because like worker count-wise, Stats was doing well, you know, and Impact, he also made the most of the situation. He made a lot of roaches and then went right back into drones, skyrocketed to 55 against the 40 plus of Stats. But if Stats put more emphasis, you know, on upgrades, tech and all that, while pretending he was being as aggressive, I think that'd be great here for him in that map number 3.
Stats in this series, by the way, he went with the same strategy twice, and it was fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you kind of thing. Or I might have got that absolutely backwards, but a Stargate, so he's obviously opting for something very different this game. I do like that when a player loses with something, you mix it up. If you win with something, hey, if your opponent dealt with it completely wrong in your eyes and you go for it again because they might not have figured it out yet, I like the way that Stats has played this series thus far.
Can he deny that overall though? Because if that gets spotted, then it becomes much easier for Impact to get the spores on time.
I tell you what, very good scouting by Impact, immediately finding that Stargate. And usually this is followed up by a Phoenix, then an Oracle, or maybe an Oracle in this case. 2 Adepts in the main base though. This is something that Stats hasn't done this series so far, and immediately getting quite a bit of economic damage here, and even gets out of there too.
Wow.
That is a gnarly start for Impact.
Really sick micro actually.
It's always
Many
impressive.
drones just in the range every time that he could. Now he's going to shade out of there after killing some more links.
That is one of the big differences I see, and when a really tip-top player and a
and
great player.
That surprised him. Like killing the Overlord there.
Oh,
Because
no.
Impact was so busy microing, he didn't think of making Overlords while his one Overlord was being attacked.
Todd, look at the worker count here. 35 to 25. He's been supply bot for a long time, as you pointed out.
Yeah, where did you think I was looking anyway?
Mate, I knew what you were looking at, buddy. 37 workers to 25 now. Now the Oracle flies in, but he's already dealt all the damage. This Oracle's just here to find out what's going on, really. 9 drones all at once. Impact is playing catch-up from this moment in time, and that is not a good place to be.
Disaster.
Absolutely.
Call it.
So Robo, Twilight, follow-up for Stats, and after seeing a naked third, that can actually make Stats think like, oh, did I deal that much damage, or is this guy potentially doing something very aggressive against me? So we won't say that Stats is definitely far ahead, but you can also potentially see that as like, oh man, this guy might attack me soon. So we'll see the choices that Stats goes for from here.
Yeah, actually, he has so many different options. You know, if he wants to play it standard, it's just going to be charge and
War Prism.
go into Templar Archives or something like that. But I think Glaives in this kind of game can be really good. Okay, he drops down the Templar Archives.
What does that usually signify? It's going to be some kind of like charge lot upgrade going on?
Yeah, but like you don't have to get it right away, right? Like the priority will be, I think, Archons for harassment, like he did it before. But it's going to come so fast. Like he's such in a good economic position compared to most games, just because he's killed that many drones already.
And a much earlier third for Stats this game too. Like his strategy is totally divvied up here. And
in terms of map control and, you know, awareness, it doesn't get any better than this here for Stats. He's got 2 Oracles alive, not only can he do damage with them, he's also going to be able to tag whatever is coming out from those units here, and have a lot of info. But actually,
this is a nice catch, because this forces the Oracles back home, or potentially making more battle units.
Whoa, this is going to get really low, and there's no units nearby. These Oracles need to get to work here.
Oh, he didn't go for it, but I don't think it would have gone down, actually.
Yeah.
So Immortals being made, Archon drop on the other side of the map, too. So it's like, hey, man, you're going to try and cancel my third? Well, I'm going to send units to your side of the map. Going for the denial of creep here, too. Lots of roaches on the way, and these aren't for any sort of all-in here, at least for the time being. These are purely for defense against these Archons. And also, given the fact that he's just played against double... Oh, nice transfuse. Is he going to keep that Archon? Oh. Very close there, very close. But given that he's played against double War Prism twice now, 6 Overlords at once.
Yeah, that's not a good sign here. That's not where you want to be here.
Does that mean he's just gearing up to go down for the... No,
I think he's just got supply block. So
absolutely, yeah.
He's like, well, I can't make any units anyway, so I might as well spend those minerals. And there, more Overlords are going to die.
Oh, and he even like produces a lot more too, so he didn't know how many he had in production. So Stats is throwing a lot of chaos at Impact, and Impact, honestly, I think he's a little flustered from this game.
Yeah, this is not going his way at all so far. Gonna drop down. A little bit hesitant. He was gonna throw down a Hydralisk, then goes for the Infestation Pit instead.
By the way, this is a great example of 2 great players going at it, but one player really bringing it to your opponent and throwing them off their routine, because Impact isn't a guy that would make mistakes like that, but this is Stats forcing those mistakes out of his opponent, really bringing it to him. So I love it when you can throw your opponent off guard like that.
it feels like whoever's making the most adjustments is gaining a lot of credit from it for sure. And at this point, we've got Charge on the way. Already having the Templar Archives is great if he wants to start Storm.
So what is this?
Just that.
By the way, Infestation Pit is already done now, so this looks like it's going to be some kind of Roach, Ravager, possibly Swarm Host as well.
Yeah, I think like in a game like this where it's not going well, maybe like one of the better ways that you can try and come back would be get a ton of Swarm Hosts and hope for the best. Maybe some Nidus with Swarm Host action that we've been theorizing about, you know, to send in these locusts from multiple angles, sniping.
But Stats isn't giving him the time of day. Charge is almost done. +1 is almost done. This is a very scary timing attack. The 2 Oracles are still alive, by the way. Does get a little tag there. Can see a lot of vision. It's a lot of Roaches, and Charge isn't quite yet done, but just a few seconds. And is that when Stats is going to pile on the pressure here? Also, decent defense. By the way, no gas at third too.
Yeah, Stats is playing super aggressive here. He actually completely skipped on that Storm. He did start +2 attack upgrades. Force fields are going to start on landing here. Those get cancelled out, but not before a lot of the Zerg units start on dying.
I tell you what, Impact is actually handling this fairly well, but so is Stats. These are really good force fields on the ramp, but Impact is kind of holding here, and he's doing it with everything that he possibly can. Queens, Roaches, but great force fields. That Archon tanking so much damage. He's getting on top of the Immortals now, focusing the bottom one, focusing the lower health one, but the Immortals kept alive by the Warp Prism. This is so much Stats at this point, and Impact is holding on for his dear life.
Yeah, 2 Immortals here are left over. They're going to move right back in there. Charge loss being warped in, straight into the fight. Impact trying to regroup. He's reinforcing from every single hatchery that he's got, but it looks like Stats might have a little too much here. Impact needs to buy a little bit of time. He needs to kite, but Stats is on top of his army, and Stats gets the victory here with a fantastic push.
Oh, and look at that cheeky smile. Probably very relieved to get through. And yeah, he's such a wonderful player to watch. We got to see him win 2-1 in this series against Impact. First game, he went for the same strategy twice, so we got to see it win. We also got to see it lose miserably. Impact, we got to give him credit too. He really, after losing against that strategy, it looked really damn strong. He really shut it down in the second game, but this game, the final game of the series, Stats brought something new and yet again, and threw Impact off guard right from the start with those 2 Adepts that got in and killed 5 drones.
I love how Solar came over right away, you know, he's like, nice Protoss, bro. A little bit of banter going here, perhaps. But yeah, I can't wait to hear from Stats in just a minute. Before that, we're going to head to a break, so we'll see you guys right after this.